Hey, this is Dustin with Magnus Pest Management in Waco, Texas, and you're listening to the Pest Geek Podcast with Frank Hernandez, the world's #1 pest control training podcast.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, here every day discussing all things pest. And I want to remind everybody to join the Pest Geek Society. Join the revolution of what's happening in the pest control industry. Join us on Facebook, Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group. We're also on Twitter. We're on YouTube, pestgeekpodcast.com. Join us. Join in on the conversation. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you need to be more successful. Contribute, engage. And now here's Jeff McGovern with today's topic.
Thank you, Frank. This is Jeff McGovern, the Pest Coach. And I'm coming to you once again, driving down the road in my Ford Transit. Seems like I spend a lot of time behind the wheel. And I certainly hope all of you folks out there in Pest Geek Podcast listening land aren't spending a lot of your time behind the wheel, because I realize you only make your money when you're in the client's facility or in the customer's home doing your job and taking care of them. And it dawned on me, particularly after my Saturday class with Henninger's Pest Control Educational Center in Plantation, that maybe we need to talk about quality of service, but not in the way that you might think. Because when we were discussing quality of service in the meeting, people were bringing up things like, well, you know, if you tell the client you're supposed to have 10 bait stations, you have 10 bait stations. Now, you all realize that having 10 bait stations around the building does not mean having 5 stacks of 2. Granted, they're both 10, but quality slipped just a little bit. So I had to delve into this, and I thought about this quite a bit. And as we discussed it, I realized quality service, or quality of anything, really boils down to looking into the client's head and ensuring yourself, and more importantly, the client assuring themselves, that they have peace of mind regarding you as their PMP, not the company, not the brand, because it really boils down to you, the ladies and gentlemen behind the wheel of those route trucks every single day all over the planet Earth, trying to protect people and property from pest issues, because it is all about peace of mind inside of that client's head. And it's the little things that make a difference. I mean, let's take a look at something as simple as the vehicle we drive. Not all of us are blessed with brand new, super fancy, expensive route vehicles. Maybe we have an older truck. Maybe we're saving money for something else in our fleet. Maybe we're a one-man operation just getting started. That's fine. Because that vehicle, the car, the truck, the van, whatever, has to be clean. It has to be well maintained so it doesn't drive down the road smoking up the whole neighborhood. It can't smell funny, but it just has to be in good shape. And it has to look nice so that when you pull up into the client's driveway at their home, or you pull into the parking lot at their business, peace of mind. The vehicle's clean, well organized, and that client goes, yes, confidence and trust in this person. But the reality is, because you gave them peace of mind pulling up in that hopefully immaculate vehicle, regardless of the age, do the best you can with it. Now, let's take a look at something else. The person, the lady or gentleman driving that vehicle. Folks, you gotta look nice. Now, granted, this is not a formal affair. I'm not asking the ladies to be in evening gowns and not asking the gentlemen to be in a suit and tie. What you have to be in is professional attire based on what is acceptable where you are working. Now, I work with PMPs here in the South that show up to work in a shirt with the company logo and a pair of blue jeans and maybe work boots. You know what? That's acceptable attire in the environments that they work in. When the client sees them coming up to the front door dressed like that, they know the person is here to work, to perform a task in their best interest to protect them from pests. So have that uniform, whatever it is for you, clean and well maintained, the same as that truck. And maybe you want to consider having some extra uniforms in the vehicle. A number of years ago, when I did a lot more work in the field, doing audits, assessments, and evaluations throughout the entire country, all the technicians that I had the privilege of working with had full extra uniforms in their vehicle, along with coveralls, so that no matter what happened during the day, they were prepared not only to protect their own safety, but to have that proper appearance to continue to give that client peace of mind. Pound this into your head. Peace of mind. Confidence and trust comes right along with that. Now, beyond just the truck and the person, physically yourself, are you physically acceptable? I realize that we're not all supermodels, okay? We don't look like movie stars. We're not buff and ripped and all that. Great. But is your hair combed? Is it in place? Do you have a permanent case of bedhead? Maybe you want to think about that. Look nice when you walk up to the client. I realize in today's world, an awful lot of people have tattoos. I'm not against those if that's your choice. But you know what? I was reminded of something the other day about peace of mind and giving proper appearance when I was talking to a local police officer where I live. A delightful young woman. She's probably in her mid-30s, highly professional officer. And she was on a call that I had made with some fellow officers, and I was talking with them after the call, and I noticed that she had a long black sleeve on one side, and it went all the way to her wrist, and her uniform shirt was short sleeve. And I asked her about that. I said, were you recently injured? And she said, no, sir, I wasn't. But the tattoos that I have, that I got while I was in the military, aren't really what you would call socially acceptable. She said, you make decisions when you're young that aren't always the best. So when I took the job here with the department, the stipulation was I cover these tattoos. She said, I have no problem with that because I have to give a professional appearance as an officer. And let me tell you, there was no issue with that whatsoever. That woman was as sharp as a tack. She knew her job and she was a professional, but she also understood that there was a possibility that her body art might be offensive to someone. So the department had a rule about that. She had no problem with it because she wanted to serve our community. So keep that in mind. Make things acceptable to the greatest number of people that you can. Don't shove it down their throats, because an individual showing up in proper attire, physically acceptable, if you will, is going to give people peace of mind. Please remember that. You know, I thought about this so much this past weekend about peace of mind and image and everything else, and it really all kept rolling back to that. You know, people can talk about trust and confidence and all these different things, but it kept coming back, and so I put that into the pest control context because we only sell service with what we do. We provide a task done for a client so that they have peace of mind regarding pest control issues. They don't have to worry about their family. They don't have to worry about their property. They are protected, and they can go about their business, whatever it might be, knowing that we're there, we got their back with regards to pest issues. The other thing I want to bring up, and this is a really touchy subject, folks, and that's smoking. There are an awful lot of pest control companies now that have a rule, no smoking in a company vehicle. And I am 100% behind that, because over the years I've ridden with technicians that smoked in their vehicle, excuse me, and to say that it was absolutely ghastly inside of that truck is an absolute understatement. It was awful. It smelled like a wet, dirty ashtray on steroids in that vehicle. And the thing is, that scent and that odor clings to the clothing, to the uniform of the employee. And I relate this story frequently when I'm doing classes. I had a PMP when I was still living up north. And, smoking was a lot more acceptable 30, 40 years ago. But I did have a PMP when I was up north that I met during a training class. And I knew the facility he was servicing. And he had been fired. His company had been fired from an account in excess of $1,000 a month. And it was a food production facility owned by a family. And the gentleman's daughter had recently taken over the front office of the business when she graduated from college. And the technician who had been servicing it for a few years pulled up out front. And she was sitting by the window in her office watching the gentleman pull in the pest control truck. And of course, her secretary out front said, "Oh, the pest control man's here." Somebody familiar to everyone in the business. As the gentleman parked the vehicle, he rolled down the window and flicked a cigarette butt out into the street. She saw this happen. He got out of the truck with his clipboard and proceeded to do an exterior assessment as is proper. And he was writing notes on his clipboard, lit a second cigarette, and smoked that as he was walking around outside. And then before he came in the door, he flicked the cigarette down into the rocks around the front of the building. Now, granted, there were probably 6 other cigarettes there in the rocks. And then he came inside. And she greeted him at the front door because she had watched this performance, if you will, out front. And she said, "You need to leave now, please." And he was taken back. He'd serviced this place for a few years. He actually never met this young woman. And she said, "You need to leave now." And she said, "I've already contacted your office." And he left. And he went back to the office, and the gentleman I was speaking to at the meeting was the manager of that office. And I said, "Well, what did she tell you?" And he said, "She called me up and said he had disrespected their property and disrespected their business, and he stunk like an ashtray." Think about that. She didn't have peace of mind regarding that pest control professional that showed up. He may do this all the time, and I know plenty of PMPs that smoke, and you know what? You never know it. You never have a clue, because they handle their addiction, their habit, very discreetly, and it doesn't bother anyone. But in this gentleman's case, he bothered someone. And he bothered someone enough that it cost their company a pretty sum of money. So, it's always going to be peace of mind. Keep that thought in your mind when you're working with your clients. Are you saying and doing things and performing for them in such a manner that they have peace of mind? Because if they have peace of mind, you're probably going to hold on to the business and have the opportunity for more business. And if they don't have peace of mind, you're not going to have any business. And so with that, this is Jeff McGovern, the Pest Coach, signing off for now. And Frank, I will turn it back to you, sir.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Have a pestacular day.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.